Happy Earth Day salutation. My name is Ted Clement, Executive Director of Save Mount Diablo. We hope you are well amidst the coronavirus pandemic. While there are certainly more challenging times ahead as part of this pandemic, it is also certain that nature can continue to nourish us if we connect with it responsibly, and this is especially important in difficult times. We have a special Earth Day gift for you, our supporters, this Zoom slideshow presentation from Stephen Joseph about his new book, Mount Diablo, A Story of Place and Inspiration. This is the most beautiful and fascinating book ever created about the Mount Diablo natural areas. One of Save Mount Diablo's proud accomplishments was helping Stephen complete this amazing new book. In addition to Stephen's majestic photos, the book also contains essays by conservationists like Robert Doyle, General Manager of East Bay Regional Park District, Seth Adams, Save Mount Diablo's Land Conservation Director, Edwin Birnbaum, one of the world's leading experts on sacred mountains, a senior fellow at the Mountain Institute, and an IUCN committee co-chair, as well as myself. Stephen Joseph is the Bay Area's premier natural landscape photographer. And with his new book, Mount Diablo, A Story of Place and Inspiration, he has created a beautiful invitation to get out and connect with the Mount Diablo natural areas and cherish and protect these places. Getting out and connecting meaningfully and responsibly with nature during times of crisis, like the current times, is especially important, as we know nature can help us heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Gratefully, because of your wonderful support, our Save Mount Diablo staff continue to work hard on conserving our critical natural world and foundation here, albeit remotely from their homes. Together, we will continue to do great things to protect the ultimate foundation for our long-term health and well-being, nature. And I again want to say thank you to all of our wonderful Save Mount Diablo supporters. Enjoy this special Earth Day treat. Thank you.
My new book, Mount Diablo, that just came out in November. These are all images I'm going to show that are from the book. And I said to Ted one day, we were sitting having a meeting, and I said, Ted, let's do a second Diablo book. And Ted said, sure, that's a great idea. And they were my first big sponsors. And the book wouldn't have happened without Ted and Save Mount Diablo. Just a quick background. Here's my Misty Mountain. I've been photographing Diablo for 35 years, 30, a little longer. A good friend of mine, Greg Pyatt, who's a wonderful watercolor artist, said to me in 1985, I met him when I was at CCAC, California College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland, in my graduate studies. And Greg said, let's go up to Diablo. This was like 1985. And I said, sure. I had been in Diablo in 1972 with a photography teacher. And we went to Rock City in 1972, and I haven't been back to Rock City since. That's one place that I don't tend to go. But I've been photographing Mount Diablo for all these years. So this is a story of place and inspiration. So let's get started. In 1971, this was what the mountain looked like, or not the mountain, but the open space. It wasn't that many acres, and it was just this one spot. Thanks to Save Mount Diablo and East Bay Regional Park District, in 2016, this is the amount of open space there is, and there's even been more added since 2016. And this is pretty much everything that I photograph, is this, all the green that you see, I've been photographing. It's over 100,000 acres, and my new book pretty much represents all the areas that you see on this map. And here's the cover to the new book, A Story of Place and Inspiration, Mount Diablo. I also have to give a special thanks to not only my sponsors, but to Linda Kohlberg, who edited the book with me and gave me so much inspiration and help on this book. This book would not have happened without Save Mount Diablo and Linda Rynack Kohlberg. Anyways, let's start on a few trails. I never photographed trails. I never did. I always just hiked. I like to show the natural landscape, and I'm not that interested in showing people-made stuff. I just want to kind of show the landscape, how it's looked. But a couple of years ago, I started thinking, God, these trails are awfully beautiful. So I started photographing the trails that I walk on. This is going out to Knob Cone Point on my way to Curry Canyon Ranch, which SMD bought a few years back. And you look at this, wouldn't you hike on this trail? This is the lower Donner Canyon as it heads up to the waterfalls. And as Seth Adams says, if the road is all wet and muddy at the bottom, you know there's water flowing at the top. And this is one of those days where I hiked up to the falls. This is called Road to Heaven. I photograph from all around the mountain at all different locations. I watch the weather every day. I look and see what the clouds are going to be. If you notice, looking at my photographs, and if you come visit my gallery, which I'll mention at the end, you'll see that there's just tons of clouds. I don't go out on sunny days. When everybody thinks that, oh, what a beautiful day and there's no clouds and it's warm, those are not my good days. My good days are stormy days with lots of clouds and beautiful light. And it's not so much what's happening in the sky, it's also what happens on the ground from the clouds. What happens, you need atmosphere to create good photographs, landscape photographs, and those clouds and weather are very important. Here's Castle Rock, of course. And what I love is photographing the rolling hills of Mount Diablo. I like to take ordinary scenes and make them into dramatic photographs. And the weather and the clouds and the fog and the sunlight are crucial parts to that. I also do tree portraits. I love trees. This is from my Dancing Oak series. In fact, I hope to be working with a very well-known choreographer in Boston, Kate Brzee, who is, hopefully we're going to do a project of, she'll choreograph a dance to my dancing tree photographs. I have many of them. Of course, yew tree, if you're a SMD follower or you've been on my website, I have tons of photographs of yew tree. It's probably my favorite tree to photograph on the mountain now. It sits all by itself off of Burma Road, and I just love the light that happens at the end of the day. And yew tree is in many of my photographs. We'll see a bunch of yew tree. And again, I do backlit trees usually when I'm doing tree portraits because I love the way, look at the way on this tree. This is Donner Creek at the bottom. And look at how luminous the leaves are. They're so bright, and within the first couple of weeks of the leaves coming out, you get those backlit and they're very dramatic. I like to get the trees before the leaves fill in so you can't see the trucks. I like to see the structure of the tree along with the leaves. This is one of my favorite views. This is going up to Eagle Peak. I love the view. You see Mount Olympia, then you see North Peak, and off on the right, the summit is in the cap or in the clouds. But it's such a great location. In fact, I was just on Mount Olympia a couple of days ago, and it's just such a great spot to photograph from. It's from Curry Point, looking up at the mountain. In fact, you can even see Devil's Pulpit, that little tiny lip just below the cap. The very top of the mountain is in the cap, and then you see Devil's Pulpit. Here's the chamise blooming up near the top of the mountain. I love clouds, as you can see. The more clouds, the better. What I like about photographing Mount Diablo is the weather changes all the time, and it's different no matter where you are. If you're on the left side of the mountain, it looks one way, not the left side. If you're on the back side, it looks one way. If you're on the, the front side, it looks another way. And you have just total control over where to go, where to photograph. I watch the weather like crazy. I see, is the fog going to be clearing? Where's the light going to be go? And I pretty much photograph every day that I can, usually between November and May. And then the summertime, I don't photograph that much because we don't have the clouds. This is from above China Wall, where SMD has their moonlight on the mountain every year. And it's turned into one of my favorite views of the mountain. Here's looking up towards the top. I mean, look at these clouds, dark gray on top, bright highlights. I'm working with a camera now too that has huge dynamic range. If there's any photographers listening, you know what dynamic range is, and that's how you get the you know, the widest from the brightest highlight to the darkest shadows, right? That's dynamic range. And I'm using a Nikon D850 digital camera these days, and it has the best dynamic range of any camera I've ever had. It's a great time to be in photography. The summit, of course, from Devil's Pulpit. This was a freezing day. I remember I get cold looking at this picture. I was up on Devil's Pulpit right near the top. There's the summit building. The wind was blowing. It must have been about 40 degrees. But I hung out there for hours waiting for the light to be just right, which is what I often do. Here's an interesting property. This is Clayton Ranch. It's East Bay Regional Park District, land bank. There were over 100 homes that were supposed to go on this ridge across the way that we're looking at. And can you imagine what this would have looked like with 100 homes? But luckily it went into East Bay Regional Park District, and now it's in their land bank, and someday will be open. This is a great double peak shot, main peak on the left, north peak on the right. And this is from Curry Canyon Ranch, that the property, that's the 1,000-acre property that Save Mount Diablo bought a few years ago. And it is absolutely gorgeous with really some of the best views of the mountain, especially when you like the double peak view. This is my one of 2 wildlife shots. I don't do wildlife. Spiders, I'm considering wildlife. I leave the wildlife to Scott Hine, who's a wonderful photographer and does great bird photos and great wildlife. And I'm really a landscape, and I'm looking at the big wide view, but every once in a while I gotta get up close. Another photograph from Devil's Pulpit. Summit's on the left, looking out at North Peak, and then on the right you have Morgan Territory, East Bay Regional Park District. Devil's Pulpit is a great place to photograph from. Long Ridge, this is Long Ridge, one of my favorite ridges to photograph. Again, I just take the ordinary. You know, somebody would look at this and say, oh, they're just hills. But with the right light in the right place, the right time, and creating the right composition. I've been studying art my whole life. I started drawing in high school with my mother, and I've been photographing and making art for my whole life. So I'm pretty good at compositions, as I'm sure you'll agree. This is looking out at Curry Canyon Ranch that SMD owns. And I love photographing in the rain. It's tough to do. Sycamore Canyon, looking to the south. The light in the morning on the mountain is just spectacular, especially when there's clouds. You see look at every ridge stands out, every hill, and getting gold hills with clouds is tremendous. Usually most of my clouds come in the wintertime. That's when we have our storms, but it's really special to get this kind of lighting with gold hills and gray clouds. I love it. Again, look how dramatic this is, because you've got these beautiful clouds going on with the blue sky. And this is along Burma Road, probably my favorite hike. If you go on Burma Road on Tuesdays, you'll see Scott Williams, who's a good friend of mine, through hiker, and he trains on this. He's done all the 4 major trails in the United States, through trails, Mexico to Canada, and he trains on Burma Road to keep in shape for his long hiking. Skunk Hollow, as I call it, this is Wall Ridge across the way. And again, this beautiful mix. This is one of my favorite times to photograph, is when you have the green moving into the gold. And I just love it when you got the mix of green and gold. And it slowly, as the green disappears and the gold comes in, it's a great time to photograph. It's happening right now. The gold is really just beginning, and the color of the green is changing. Again, look at, my skies are so full of clouds. I'll often photograph just a small amount of land, and then I let the rest of the photograph be clouds and light. I'm really trying to capture a feeling in my photographs. I want you to stand, or whatever you're doing, I want you to look at my photographs and get the feeling of what it's like for me to be out there when I took the photograph. And in this case, I just love clouds and light and making good composition. Another shot of North Peak from just off of Devil's Elbow, if you know where that is. North Peak is fabulous to photograph from any angle. This is right after the fire, looking over, actually we're looking down at Curry Canyon Ranch out towards Morgan Territory, and you can see all the burned, plants. I photographed this area over a period of time to just sort of see how what happens after a big fire and how things come back. Another great, this is Oak Flat at the beginning of Burma Road, looking up towards the mountain. In fact, all the way on the right, very right corner, that's where Juniper Campground is on the ridge to the right. Great lighting. And then of course, my tree portraits. I love trees, buckeyes and oaks. I shoot both, a lot of oak trees, and I'm always looking for trees that stand apart from anything else so I can really show off the shape of the tree. I just love how intricate all the branches make these photographs. And with the right kind of light, this is at sunset, end of the day, facing west, cloudy all day, and then at the last minute, the light comes out and lights up my tree. And I just love tree portraits, especially with dramatic clouds. And I know I go back to these trees over and over and over. I have all of my favorite trees picked out that I like to do tree portraits on. And I just go back to them when the lighting seems right. And you'll notice too, a lot of my trees are backlit. I try to hide the sun in back of the tree, and that shows off the branches and all the leaves and creates a really nice feeling around the tree. These are tough shots. This is when you need huge dynamic range in your camera in order to capture the subtle grays, the highlights. If you notice in a lot of my photographs, you don't see spectral white or just white clouds. You might see it a little tiny bit, but I try to keep all the detail of the clouds. The camera sensor is not as sensitive as our eyes. So you might look out at a scene and you might see lots of variations of gray, but the camera isn't always capable of picking up all those variations. So a lot of times you have to shoot several photographs and then those get combined in Photoshop. This is one of my favorite buckeye photographs with the nuts, the buckeye nuts coming out in early fall. And I just love this tree. This is in Blackbird's Field. Along Donner Creek, again, look how beautiful lit leaves from behind showing off the tree trunk. I love this photograph. Of course, I'm only showing you photographs I love. On my book, I started, of course, we're going to talk about manzanitas now. On my book, I started out, all the photographs are within the last 4 years. So I started with several thousand photographs, knocked it down to 1,000 photographs, down to 500 photographs, and finally ended up with 100 or 200 photographs. So of course, they're all my best images. I love manzanitas. If you get a manzanita lit right at the end of the day, when there's a lot of yellow in the light and it's just rain, which it did in this case, the bark is that beautiful glowing red. People come into my gallery, I have a couple manzanitas up and they'll go, that can't be real. And I said, that's the way it looked. It's also hard to find manzanitas that are standing alone so I can get these tree portraits. Usually they're kind of nestled in other trees, but I love how intricate the small branches are and the color, it's just so smooth. The bark is just phenomenal. It's one of my favorite trees. Another tree portrait, an oak standing by itself from my Dancing Oak series. And people say, well, we don't have seasons. Well, we have huge seasons. I mean, this is fall. This was a couple of years ago. It's not like this every year. Last year, the leaves really didn't turn that yellow, the oak leaves. But a couple of years ago, it looked just like this. They were just gorgeous. The whole mountain was lit in beautiful leaves. More of my Dancing Oaks. And again, backlit, that's what I do. That's how you make dramatic tree portraits, is backlit. This is just before sunset, and you can see the sun is blocked behind one of the branches, and that's how I get this effect. More dancing trees. We're so lucky that trees dance. Here's another one. God, I love trees. Another tree portrait. Now here's an interesting one. I call this the hand tree. It's upper Skunk Hollow. And look at the difference between this shot. This just, I never get tired of photographing Mount Diablo because it's different every day. With the weather and the clouds and the lighting, it's always changing. And that's why I go back to the same trees over and over and over, the same spots. But look at the difference between, this is the same tree, between this shot and this shot. Just totally different, same tree, different time of year, different time of day, and what a difference. How could you get tired of photographing this when there are this drastic seasonal changes that go on? More dancing trees. A fall shot, that was from a couple of years ago when the fall leaves were just gorgeous. Not quite as varied as the East Coast leaf-wise, you know, color-wise. We don't have the maples out here, but the oak trees turn such a beautiful yellow and orange. Oh, I love this one. This is on the Mary Bowerman Trail. Of course, everybody knows Mary Bowerman, right? She was one of the founders of Save Mount Diablo. Her and Art Bonwell and another group of people, of volunteers, that this is on the Mary Bowerman Trail that goes right below the summit. Highly recommend going. It's one of my favorite trails. It goes all the way around the top of the mountain, just below the summit. So you get great views anywhere you look. And the trees that along in this one area are all covered in moss. So when the lighting's just right, they just glow. I love moss-covered trees. Great trail. Another one of my tree portraits. This is along Burma Road. There's a lot from Burma Road. I do hike quite a bit on Burma Road. One of my favorite trails. Another dancing tree portrait. Oh, not Castle Rock. This is China Wall. This is where Save Mount Diablo does their Moonlight on the Mountain every year. And it's just an incredible rock formation. And this was the best spring I've ever seen on the mountain. This is just a couple of years ago. I mean, the green doesn't even look real. Sometimes I look at it and I think, was it really that green? We haven't had a year like this in a few years. Here's a shot from China Wall looking at the mountain. Look how green that was. That was an incredible year. This is in Donner Canyon, hiking up to the Falls Trail, and you're actually looking at Eagle Peak straight ahead, a little bit on the left. That's Eagle Peak. And Donner Canyon's incredible. That's one of the most incredible places. I hike from usually Regency in Clayton, and you get on the trail and you hike up, and it's a wonderful half-a-day hike to go up and make a whole loop and come back. Round Valley. This is the view from Round Valley. I love this double peak view. And I go up to Round Valley, not a ton, but I go up, you know, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And I go to the same hill. I sit on the same hill every time. And I sit there because it's got this beautiful, you know, the summits on the left and North Peak on the right. And I just love, I can sit there all day and watch the light change and the clouds change, and it's really spectacular. And Round Valley is just a wonderful place to hike in. That's another East Bay Regional Park District property. Now here's the peak from Crager Peak. So on the left you see North Peak, and on the right you can actually see a little tiny dot, and that's the summit, and then it goes down to Moses Rock Ridge. But this is Irish Canyon in the foreground. Save Mount Diablo purchased Irish Canyon a few years back. And Crager Peak is a East Bay Regional Park land bank, and it's just got great views looking east, looking towards the west, I mean, from the east. Oh, this spot, I call it my Bob spot. I was on this spot taking this photograph over 30 years ago when Bob Marks, who built me my gallery at his ranch, Summit Ranch, I was using a 100-year-old camera, and I was set up on a tripod, and I was on a very steep incline. And I just loved this view of Castle Rock with the mountain in the background. And I see this guy on a horse come charging up the hill at me. And I thought, who is this crazy person? I mean, it was a really steep hill. And it was Bob, and Bob rides up to me and he goes, "What are you doing in my spot?" And I said, "Your spot? This is my spot." I had already been photographing here for 4 or 5 years, and we've been very close friends ever since. And we call this our spot. Another one in Castle Rock. Castle Rock is such a great rock formation, and it's just so much fun to photograph. This is where the Peregrine Falcon project is, and it's just, you see it, you know, most people only see this when they're on the highway on 24 coming through the tunnel, and you turn that corner and you see this beautiful view of Castle Rock. It shows up quite well. Well, it's a very prominent feature, and I love photographing it, especially when there's gold in the background with great clouds. That was a nice day. You know, I remember pretty much every hike I've been on. I look at these photographs and I think, oh yeah, that was that day. Yeah, I took that hike. This is, again, Castle Rock. I took that hike. I remember feeling, I look at these and the feeling comes right back to me on how I felt when I took this photograph. And one thing I really enjoy about the digital photography is I can create photographs that look like that's how I remember it looking to me. It might not have looked like that to you, but that's how it looks like to me when I was standing there. So I like to capture that feeling. And with the digital photography and with the digital printing, I can create these prints and images that look exactly how it looked to me when I took the photograph. I love that. Here's a little closer view. That's Mount Zion in the background. Very soft, cloudy day with all the chaparral and rocks in the foreground. Look at the difference. You go from gold to green. It's shocking. And not everybody, you know, because I go to the same spots over and over and over, I photograph these same spots in all the different seasons. So I get to see these views over and over and how drastically different they are. It's very, very rewarding. Back to Round Valley, double peak, main peak on the left, north peak on the right. I think Round Valley, yeah, it is maybe one of my favorite views of the mountain from this particular direction. I love looking at the mountain from all sides, but this one is particularly nice. This is Hardy Canyon, another East Bay Regional Park District property. This is in Round Valley, and I don't think I've ever seen a ridge like this that's so perfectly spaced with all the oak trees with grass in between. I've been looking at this spot for years, and it wasn't until about 2 years ago, God, it might have even been last year, that I finally got a good photograph of Hardy Canyon of the ridge. I've been trying to photograph this for quite a while. Here we have looking out over Curry Canyon Ranch with Morgan Territory in the background. And I do tend to try to get out in the rain and photograph. It's very hard photographing in the rain, very challenging. I have to, in fact, Scott Williams taught me how to hold my umbrella in the crook of my neck and shoulder, and then have my hands free to take photographs. And I love photographing in the rain. We'll see some rainbow photographs later. Another rain photograph. It's tough to stay dry, keep your camera equipment dry, keep the lens clean, but I have to pretty much clean the lens every time I take a photograph from any kind of water. And then the fog. The fog comes in, and if you're up above the fog, or I'm almost at the same level as the fog, I'm looking across at it. But at different times when the fog comes in and the top of Mount Diablo is out of the fog, it's just so cool to look down and see the mix of fog with the land underneath. It's really, I love capturing that look. Another photograph from Curry Point, looking back towards the mountain. This is Wall Ridge, Wall Point. I actually called this my Skunk Hollow. Sometimes people ask me, God, I really want to hike in Skunk Hollow, but it's not on the map. Well, a lot of my names I make up. Every ridge, every tree, every rock isn't named, every creek. So I've named them, and this is where Skunk Hollow is. And I say, well, you can't actually find it on the map because the name isn't on the map. This is China Wall. Look how beautiful this is. I love this area. My gallery is just off to the right, down below China Wall. You see the line of rocks. And this is where, again, right in front of those rocks on the right side is where Save Mount Diablo does their moonlight on the mountain. And I have a little series here. I've been photographing this area. Bob and Joan Marks built me a gallery at Summit Ranch now 4 years ago. And since this is right above my gallery, I tend to photograph this area quite a bit. Another shot. And of course, a spectacular cloud day. Look at these different layers of clouds. And again, trying to capture all the subtleties of the clouds is a challenge, but with the digital photography, it's quite doable. Here's the view. Here's Castle Rock again. Again, this was that incredible, incredible spring. And this is right after a storm. There's Castle Rock. Often I go out and I'm usually in the rain in the early part of the day. And if I can stay warm and dry, I usually hang out for the day. And then I get these fabulous photographs with the light. The quality of light after the rain is just spectacular. And that was an incredible time. Again, you can see the rain had just passed over me and you see the rain off in the distance. Another shot of Irish Canyon with the main peak in the background. Fabulous place to photograph and hike. And again, this is East Bay Regional Park Land Bank and is not open to the public. And then the Buckeyes. Oh my God, I love Buckeyes. I used to, when Greg and I first started hiking on the mountain, and we hiked for many years together, he would paint and I would, photograph. We would actually sit in these trees smelling flowers. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but we'd sort of pretend we were bees. And we'd sit up and you actually can smell, the flowers smell differently. They all don't smell the same. It's incredible, but I love photographing Buckeyes and to see them in full bloom like this. This was last year. I think this year is going to be a good Buckeye flower year too. Every year is different. Another shot. Oh, here comes yew tree. Got to sneak into the yew tree photograph. You can see why I love yew tree. And it's not just the tree itself, but it's the surrounding area. It's just perfectly set for doing these sunset photographs. In the spring, the sun sets to the left side of the tree, and in the fall or summer and fall, it sets to the right side of the tree. So I can block the sun using either of those two branches on either side. And in fact, I don't have it in this slideshow because these are all from my book, but just this week, I found a new yew tree. I can't believe it. And it was going up towards Wall Point. And I've been up there a bunch of times and I never saw this tree. And there was another yew tree. So stay tuned, more yew tree pictures to come. Another yew tree. And another yew tree. Look how soft this is. I really captured the evening. This was just minutes before the sun went down and created this beautiful glow. More trees, more oaks. This is right where I have my second wildlife photograph was taken, which is coming up really soon. More dancing oaks with mistletoe. I love this one. And dancing oaks. Backlit, see? Backlit trees. The sun is just setting and you get these beautiful colors. And then the poppies. By the way, this is a good poppy year. It's not always good. Sometimes the poppies are good, sometimes they're not. It's a race. The poppies have to grow quick enough. I think they like drier weather, and they have to grow quick enough to get above the grass. If you see, to get this kind of look, and there's only a few spots on the mountain that has this many poppies. This is in Skunk Hollow. A couple of years ago, there was no poppies. And also the pigs, the wild pigs tend to dig up a lot of the poppies, so you don't always see them. But again, if the poppies grow faster than the grass, they're above the grass, and you see these beautiful fields of poppies. And it's just great. And this year, the grass didn't grow very fast, and the poppies are looking really good. Of course, you can't drive up in the mountain. Mount Diablo is closed right now, but you can hike in and you can ride your bike in. There's yew tree actually from the other side. This might be one of the only photographs I have from yew tree looking up towards the mountain. And you see yew tree over on the right. You know, I also try to create a lot of depth in my photography, and I do that with shadows and light and clouds. This photograph shows that off really well. You got foreground, middle ground, background, and then great clouds. I'm always trying to get dynamic compositions using the trees and the lines, and I love diagonals. And you think, you know, your eye, when you look at this photograph, your eye is drawn into Castle Rock, which is kind of on the left. And then you sort of travel over to the right and you make a kind of a circle with your eyes. I think about that. It's called pre-visualization, and Ansel Adams used it all the time. And you think when you're doing a landscape photograph, you're trying to make some good composition out of the chaos of nature. You've got stuff going all over the place. And with this pre-visualization, you actually look at a scene and you visualize what the photograph's going to look like. So you think of the end result, and that helps you composing the photograph and getting the light just right. So I pre-visualize a lot of times. I'm good enough that I can look at the scene and say, oh, this is what the photograph's going to look like. And in this case, your eye gets let in kind of on the left, and you work your way up the mountain. Oh boy, what a great day this was. This was another China wall photograph from right across the way. And again, my gallery is just down from these hills, but like another spectacular green. And again, when the green is backlit, the sun's kind of low, it's near setting in the west, you get these very vibrant greens. And I love this photograph, and great clouds, of course. Here's my other wildlife photograph. Like I said, I'm always looking at the big view. I don't really have the equipment to do close-up photographs of animals, but this particular bobcat, I was hiking along in the grass. It was gold, and I was talking to my mother on the phone. She had called me, and all of a sudden in front of me, about 50 feet away, I see this head pop up out of the grass. And I said to my mother, oh, Mom, a bobcat, I'll call you back. And I didn't want to stress it out. You're not supposed to do that kind of stuff. I followed it like 50 feet away, and I walked along, and the cat went up in this tree, and I spent an hour with this bobcat. It was incredible. It took a nap. It got up from the nap and stretched just like a cat. Beautiful, beautiful animal. And I didn't realize the hour that I was spending with this bobcat. And of course, when I walked up closer to it, I got my camera ready thinking, oh, I'll get a blurry photograph of its rear end as it jumps off the branch. But it just stayed. It didn't look stressed out. So I stayed, and we spent an hour together. Of course, I didn't realize that during that hour, my mother was freaking out because she thought I was following a mountain lion. And so she was having all these visions of problems. And when I called her back, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Mom. It was just a bobcat. And even if it was a mountain lion, there's really no danger to people. But this is my other wildlife. Another backlit tree. And look how these leaves glow. I love this type of look. More tree portraits. Can't get enough trees. God, I love trees. And again, to get this gold mixed with dramatic clouds like this is tremendous. Now, water on the mountain. Water on the mountain is precious. And this is actually, that's China Wall you're looking at in the background, and this is just a small pond. I love photographing water. Here's Black Pond. This is in Skunk Hollow. This pond was shot a few years ago, and unfortunately the pigs have dug up all of that lower part of the photograph, and the pond doesn't look like this anymore. Everything changes. One of the largest waterfalls on the mountain, Wild Oat Waterfall. And when this is flowing, it's just a beautiful, beautiful waterfall to photograph. This is Little Pine Creek. I've never seen more ticks than down on this creek. I don't know why, but this is down near the bottom of the mountain, and there are tons of ticks, but it's so worth going into. It's a very quiet place, and I go there and listen to Little Pine Creek and take photographs. Here we have, this is when Little Pine Creek really flows. This is like practically when it's raining, Little Pine Creek looks like this, and you get that reddish brown water from all the mud that washes down. This is Ruby Creek, a little further up above Little Pine Creek. Another Backlit Trees with the creek flowing through. Very little creek action this year. Although I did look at one of the waterfalls last week up on North Peak, and there was some water flowing, but we really didn't have enough rain to get the creeks flowing. Another Little Pine Creek. And the rocks, every creek has different color rocks, every creek on the mountain. This is Donner Creek down at the base, and all of the colors mix. The red, the green, the orange, the yellow, the purple, all these great color rocks all come in one place. But I know different creeks where there are different color rocks, and when they're wet like this, you know, the water flowing over them, they just glow. I mean, look at this color of the rock, orange, it's beautiful. Here's a nice yellow one. I love flowing water. Small waterfall up near Wild Oat Waterfall. Looks gold. And again, check these rocks out. Oh my God, this was from a few years ago. That was the best water year I've ever had on Mount Diablo. Every little place where there could be flowing water had water flowing. And this is again taken in the rain. And look at the leaves, the bay leaves on the right side, how they're glowing because they're wet. And then all these beautiful color rocks. I love rain. This is Orange Creek. And this is not far from Blue Oak picnic area. And all the rocks are orange, just like you see in the foreground. One of the misty days on the mountain. This is Lower Donner Creek. And this has to be, I think, one of the oldest buckeyes I've ever seen. I call this ancient buckeye, and I photograph it all the time with Donner Creek flowing around it. It's an absolutely gorgeous tree, very old. And I like the little waterfalls. This is like 3-4 feet tall. Those are my favorite waterfalls to photograph, are the little falls, and they're all over the mountain. This is down from Wild Oat Waterfall. You can see, actually, you're looking out towards Clayton and Eagle Peak. Another shot of Donner Creek. Donner Creek really flows. It's got to be one of the bigger creeks on the mountain. Another waterfall. This is the large waterfall. The Falls Trail is great. Everybody should check out the Falls Trails, but it's a good hike. It's a good half-day hike. All right, Vasco Caves. This is where Vasco Caves. I've been photographing Vasco Caves since Bob Doyle and I went out there in 1995. And Bob wanted this area photographed before any changes. This is before East Bay Regional Park District bought the property with Contra Costa Water District. And it's a protected place. You can't go there, but you can sign up for a tour with East Bay Parks, and they'll take you around the property. And it is one of the more special places in our whole area. The rocks, they're covered with lichen. You hear whispering voices in the caves, and more raptors than I've ever seen anywhere. But again, it's a closed property, it's highly protected, and the way to see it is to sign up for one of the East Bay Regional Park District guided tours. This is Black Meadow in Vasco. You can even see Diablo right to the right of that windmill, way back in the background. Another one of Skunk Hollow with the fog just on Wall Ridge. This is a view looking at Eagle Peak from the Falls Trails. Sunset Oak. Another sunset, beautiful fall photograph. One of my favorite tree portraits, backlit and just glowing, doesn't look alive. A gold shot from China Wall. Beautiful at any time of year, especially with clouds. Okay, we're looking at China Wall off on the right. That's the mountain with Castle Rock. And again, these are panoramic photographs that are, sometimes 8 or 10 stitched together. Long ridge, creating sense of depth through shadows and light. And the clouds, of course. I was hanging out waiting for a good cloud to come along, and I was treated to this beautiful cloud. That's Juniper Campground, that clump of trees kind of on just right of center. That's where Juniper Campground is. Of course, got to show another yew tree, gorgeous sunset. And rainbows. Boy, I'll tell you, where do you see rainbows? You see them in your car, on the highway, you see them walking around your neighborhood. How many times are you in a gorgeous place like this when a rainbow happens? First, it's got to rain on you. Then the rain's got to pass over and the sun's got to come out at the right time. And the sun shining through the rain creates the rainbow. Well, the last 2 years, I've had great rainbow shots. I've more than in my 30-some years of photographing. I just happen to be, I'm out there, I'm in the right place, I'm staying there through the rain. And then if the sun comes out, you get these beautiful rainbow shots. Here's a rainbow over Castle Rock. I love rainbows. Tough to photograph, tough to capture. One of the harder things to photograph. Beautiful cloud day. Another yew tree.
Aloha.
This is, I think this is one of Seth Adams' favorite photographs of mine. When we were putting the book together and Seth was writing his chapter and helping me with the captions, he said, I love this photograph because here you've got the low clouds, low fog sitting right above Castle Rock with the background sunset, and right at the end of the day, a hole opened up in the clouds and just lit, spotlit Castle Rock. And this cloud, check this cloud out. This photograph is 13, 14 feet long in my gallery. So if you want to see some big photographs, you're going to have to come to my gallery to visit. The cap sitting on the top of the mountain. View looking to the west. This was an incredible shot. This is maybe one of my best sunset photographs. I was up there all day, nothing. Heavy overcast, rained on me 2-3 times. And over San Francisco, I was looking back me to the west, I could see this little tiny bit on the horizon that was clear. And sure enough, the sun hit that spot like 2 minutes before it went below the horizon. And this is 10 vertical photographs stitched together. That's how I do my panoramic photographs. So I'm taking 2 or 3 exposures of each position. So this was made up of 30 photographs. I had 2 minutes to take these photographs. Sometimes I get in the middle of a beautiful photograph like this and the light dies. But this time I got all the way to the end and then the light went out. Another sunset from China Wall. Long Burma Road. Nice end of the day light. And of course, yew tree. This is my favorite yew tree panorama. Oh boy, this is up at the top of the mountain. Look at this light show with the clouds. I was totally in the clouds. I couldn't see anything. And every 15 or 20 minutes, a clearing would happen and I would see this, and 4 or 5 minutes later, gone. I was in the clouds again. Very dramatic. Here's a shot from way across the valley, actually. This is from Acalanes Ridge, which is a Walnut Creek open space. I go up to Acalanes Ridge quite a bit because I live very close to Acalanes Ridge, and I get this beautiful view of the mountain. North Peak from Eagle Peak. The summit. Double peak view from Curry Canyon Ranch. This is from, I call it Eagle Rock, and it's just Eagle View. It's a rock that I sit on that has this tremendous view. Rain from Akalani's Ridge again, Walnut Creek Open Space. And of course, rain produces all this beautiful, the creeks flow. This is Buckeye Creek, one of my favorite spots on the mountain, very special. I go there to meditate and other things. Rainbow over Castle Rock, perfect day. And that's my Misty Mountain, another shot from Akalani's Ridge. And, you know, I'll never get tired of photographing Mount Diablo. It changes all the time. I'm up there constantly, and I'm not a very good tourist, so I have to be in the same place over and over and over to learn the light, and that's how I make my best photographs. Now, a quick little note, we're almost done. I've got about another minute to go. This is where my gallery is located. Everybody should come visit. The gallery's closed right now, obviously, but I'm usually open on Sundays afternoons, and check my website and that tells you when I'm open. But this is Summit Ranch, and you can see we're in the foothills. This is Bob and Joan Marks built me this gallery 4 years ago. And you see the manzanita and the different photographs. I change all the small photographs. I try to change regularly so you'd see different stuff. And like I said, if the gallery is open, I'm there. And if I'm not traveling, I'm there Sunday afternoons. But again, check the website because that'll tell you right at the top of the website, it'll say the next day that the gallery is open. And as soon as we're through this, what's going on now, I will be opening my gallery again. But that's it for me. That's my tour of Mount Diablo, and my book is available. I mail them out. You can order it right online through my website.
You continue to inspire us, remind us how grateful we should be to have these incredible natural resources around us. They're arguably more important now than they've ever been before. And your work just does so much to get the word out about how special these natural areas are. So just thank you. And I know people have an opportunity now to buy your beautiful book. I hope you'll tell them how, because, you know, even while folks are stuck at home, that's just a great book to open and be inspired by, and think of new places they might like to visit during this time. So I hope you'll give clear instructions on how to buy your book. And I think Karen's going to help moderate and do some questions with you now as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
and for
yes.
ordering the book, just like Karen, for ordering the book, you just go to my website and you'll see on the front page as you scroll down, it says order books here. And there's two different types. There's the regular book that comes just with the book, and then there's a special book that comes in a really nice clamshell box with an original small print. And you can see that, but you have to go to my website to order. You use PayPal. You don't have to have an account, and it's very, very simple. And I try to mail books out every few days as I need. And then prints, I sell prints, as you see in my gallery. Any print, any image you see on my website or in the book is available to put on your wall.
Yeah.
I love working with Save Mount Diablo. I was on the board through the 90s, and I love, you guys are the best organization, and we have you to thank for so much of our open space, you in the East Bay Regional Park District, and we're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
Wonderful
Thank you, everyone.
organization. Everybody become a member if you're not a member, and come
Yeah.
visit my gallery.